Ujamaa.
Very good, very good, very good. My name is David Fordham. I'm the adjunct professor of history at the Citadel at Charleston Southern University. And the theme for today is cooperative economics. But due to a request from the good ladies of Black Nurses Association who invited me here, I'm going to put an emphasis on the cooperation, because that's so important. Because so often when we are young, we hear the elder people saying that it's almost impossible for us to cooperate and unite. And that's a fallacy that we have to get rid of and out of the minds of our youth if we're going to take this thing up to the next level. And I think you all would agree with me on that. Now, I'm here to tell you about a time when we really got together and cooperated that has been hidden from the history books for the most part until I started doing some research from some old newspapers on the subject. Now, some of you know the name of a man by the name of Benjamin Ryan Tillman. And for those of you who don't, most of y'all know that back in the day we were segregated and lacked voting rights and things of that sort. Well, Benjamin Tillman was the man responsible for that here in South Carolina. He also started Clemson and Winthrop universities, and his statue is at Clemson, and there's a building named after him at Winthrop. And so naturally there's a lot of people with problems with that. But what a lot of people don't know is this. There were 6 great African-American heroes by the names of Thomas Miller, Robert Anderson, Isaiah Reed, James Wigg, William Whipper, and the great Robert Smalls. Yes, that Robert Smalls, the man who sailed the ship with his enslaved family out of Charleston Harbor and into freedom. And during the Reconstruction days, on January the 23rd, 1868, he was the one that proposed in the South Carolina Constitution, resolved all children between the ages of 7 and 14 must attend public school at least 6 months a year under penalty of non-compliance. That was the Reconstruction period, during which African Americans voted, had citizenship rights, had 2 lieutenant governors here in South Carolina, Alonzo Jacob Ransier and Richard Howard Gleaves. In Louisiana, there was the African-American governor, Pinckney Benton Stewart Pinchback, who also started that great HBCU, Southern University, in Baton Rouge. However, men like Tillman, who is from Trenton, South Carolina, Edgefield County, they belonged to a clan-like posse called the Sweetwater Sable Club, who assassinated and massacred African Americans in Hamburg, South Carolina in 1896. And with the help of groups like that, they turned the tide of Reconstruction and slowly began eating away at our constitutional rights. So, in 1896, Tillman, along with the South Carolina legislature, decided to rewrite the state constitution to eliminate the African American vote. And so, however, these 6 bold brothers who I just described just now rose up and decided they were going to be in the State House and opposed to this. Thomas Miller was the first founding president of South Carolina State. Robert Anderson from Georgetown was an educator and a postman who was the one who brought up the suggestion in the State House in 1895 for the establishment of South Carolina State University. William Whipper, whose great-grandnephew Seth is a magistrate up in North Charleston. William Whipper had a law office on 91 Broad Street downtown. Isaiah Reed was a lawyer down in Beaufort, as was James Wigg. And so these individuals got together, and according to the Charleston News and Courier and the Columbia State of that day, they made eloquent speeches that I've dug up and I'm about to put in a book sometime next year. So when Tillman and his cronies made these slanderous statements about the supposed incompetence of Black people, the great Thomas Miller got up there on October the 25th, 1895, and said these words in the South Carolina State House. Call us aliens, we aliens, the people who are the foundation of the American civilization. Aliens, a people who by our sweat assisted in the clothing of the barren crops of the Northeast and Bendu, who drained the swamps of the South, who made them to mimic gold in harvest time, who by our endurance, our toil, our suffering, made it possible for our white neighbors to to establish this government, the asylum of us all, who by their toil established the canal and railroad systems in this country, call us aliens, then to whom can the term citizens be applied? Let that sink in. Along with that, you also had James Wigg of Beaufort, who also had this to say on the subject.
But while he's talking,
we offer you the supremacy.
okay.
The committee offers you white supremacy with white degradation.
Okay.
We offer you the supremacy of law, intelligence, and property. Choose ye whom you will serve. Will you make justice, honor, law, fidelity, and the truth the palladium of your liberties, or will you make injustice, perjury, and fraud the foundation of your policy? We have pled our cause. If you refuse to adjudicate our claims, we will yield to the inevitable, but we shall appeal from drunk to Philip sober. We submit our cause to the judgment of an enlightened people, public opinion, and the advancement of a Christian civilization. The great Robert Smalls had this to say on the subject. My race has honored me with a seat on this floor, and I shall serve them to the best of my ability. My race needs no special defense, for the past history of them in this country proves us to be the equal of any people anywhere. All we need is an equal chance in the battle of life. I am proud of them, and by their acts toward me, I know that they are not ashamed of me, for they have at all times honored me with their votes. And then William Whipper, the great lawyer, had this to say on the subject. This convention is about to make a great mistake in not giving the Negro latitude. The car of Negro progress is coming, and instead of allowing it to come on, you wish to stop it. You just as well may make up your minds that the Negro will rise. We will not be crushed. The Negro will rise. Sooner or later, crush us as you may. The Negro, with our perseverance and our pluck, will and must come out. We will not be kept down forever, for it is not the nature of human affairs. And the people in the State House got up and applauded, so much so that there were these two white delegates, T.E. Douglas from Marlborough County, South Carolina, and John Halston Reed of Georgetown got up and said, look, I appeal to you, we cannot do this. This is violating the Constitution of the United States and the 15th Amendment that says all persons of the male gender who are allowed to vote regardless of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. And the State House got up and they clapped at these speeches and they voted 116 to 7 to make segregation and the denial of black voting rights the law of the state of South Carolina. And the great Robert Smalls got up and said, before I sign that rag of a constitution, I will walk home to Beaufort from Columbia. So as this was done, people from around the world cheered at the bravery of these African-American individuals in that fight. And they lost, unfortunately, that battle, but they did not lose the complete war. Because not too long after this, the inevitable happened, and by 1901, there was one last African-American in the United States Congress. His name was George Henry White from Wilmington, North Carolina. And he said that that this is not our complete farewell. One day we will come back into these hallowed halls of the United States government. He said that in 1901, and he died in 1918. 10 years after that, in Chicago, the great Oscar DePriest became the first African-American since Reconstruction to enter the hallowed halls of Congress. And on February the 10th, 1930, for Negro History Week, which we now know as Black History Month, some friends of his came down to speak. And so on that date, according to the congressional record, February 10th, 1930, Oscar DePriest walked into the United States Congress. Accompanying him were John Roy Lynch, a former Reconstruction Congressman of Mississippi, and the great Thomas Miller, who made that great defense over 30 years before for the rights of African Americans. And he introduced them before the body to great applause. And sure enough, not too long after that, the great Adam Clayton Powell of New New York, was elected to represent New York in Congress. And finally, in 1947, Judge Julius Waties Waring, over on Broad Street, threw out the rule in South Carolina that barred African Americans from voting. So you see, through this cooperation, these men temporarily lost that battle, but in the long run, they won the war that we could vote. But this is of greater importance now, because you see, unfortunately, the cohesive communities and homes that we once had are in a very bad shape these days. We are living in a time that is lacking in cohesion, understanding, intelligence, cooperation. And it is important that people like us who love to go into these archives and dig up these things, it is important that we take the wisdom of these elders and bring it down to this young community who is in such dire need of them. And that is one of the ways that we have hope, through inspiring these young people, knowing that if we once did great things before, we can certainly do them again. And if we do that, we can do as the old folks say, and climb Jacob's ladder to our rightful place. And on that note, thank you.
Excellent. Appreciate that. All right. Good.